anyways, all of this is to say Oppenheimer is listed as one of the scientists deeply involved in anti-gravity research. Oppenheimer. And so he starts to think, maybe there's more to this UFO story that, I think they had some UFO sightings around their nuclear stuff. And by the way, the other thing that makes sense about Oppenheimer being read in is UFOs are crashing and showing up around, at least we know they're showing up because of UFOs and nukes, but maybe crashing around these sites. And so, it would make sense that like somebody like an Oppenheimer would be read in. And so Harry Turner's the, Australian Oppenheimer or whatever, like he starts to get interested in this. And he starts to think that maybe the U.S. and their inquiries into UFOs and anti-gravity are way more than meets the eye. This whole Blue Book thing is like, he's like, maybe this is just an op. And because Blue Book is like the front-facing program that the Air Force has to, again, explain away everything, downplay everything. And we know this because of, H.P. Robertson, this Caltech physicist, writes this memo in 1952, which was supposed to be, it's been declassified since, but it was supposed to be classified at the time. And it was basically saying, like, Blue Book, your mandate is to minimize this stuff. Right. Explain it away. It's swamp gas. It's, weird lights, whatever. Weather balloons, and, minimize this stuff through media, through narrative and storytelling. Like it's very clear about what, the goal is. And so Harry Turner in Australia is saying, maybe there's actually more to this. And he does this investigation. And I think this was probably right around when the Five Eyes are being formed as well, where like there's more intelligence sharing between, allied, Australia, UK, right. US, Canada, that sort of thing. And man, this document is crazy. You can actually look it up. It's on John Greenwald's like Black Vault or whatever, he has all these like, old declassified documents. And it is a comprehensive document that shows that the U.S. had these like anti-gravity outposts. They were studying gravity systematically. The CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence was studying this stuff. And you had this guy, Agnew Bonson, who's, UNC, the Institute of Field Physics, the UNC Chapel Hill. Bryce DeWitt is working with him. Then you have the Gravity Research Foundation at MIT. You have University of Indiana. You have Purdue. You have MIT. You have Princeton, and you have the Institute for Advanced Study, which I believe those two were different at the time, even though the Institute for Advanced Study was...
What year are we in right now, roughly?
We're in... So he's writing this document in 1971, but all of those institutions, the academic institutions had been set up prior to this, but this is all like mid-century. Like 50s, like anti-gravity was super in vogue. People were really deep into gravity research. So much so that Lewis Whitten, who's Ed Whitten, the greatest string theorist of all time, Lewis Whitten is working at Martin Corporation, which is pre-Lockheed Martin. He's working in their anti-gravity division called RIAS, Research Institute for Advanced Study, which is a play on IAS, Institute for Advanced Study. And he says, we are going to figure out gravity in about the time that, it took to build the first atom bomb. And you have, Stanley Desser and Richard Arnowit working on these gravity particle theory, gravitons. And, anyway, Lewis Whitten says gravity is in the wind, meaning it is everywhere. But maybe there's a sub reading to that, which is in the wind is actually an intel spy term, which means it's scattered everywhere. Yeah. So like maybe like it's in the wind in that it's like compartmentalized in all these different places, and there's some top of the pyramid view on like where that gravity research is headed. Who knows? It gets vaporized like in the early 60s, but it was extremely vital at the time. And so he meant, I think when he said in the wind, it was like, it was ubiquitous. It was like very in vogue. And you have all these, Ansel Talbert, I believe, was this Air Force guy who wrote a lot about it. You have this Michael Gladich article called Here Come the G Engines. And all of these patrons of aerospace are exuding supreme confidence that beating gravity is around the bend. And this ties in with the Chapel Hill Conference where quantum gravity gets created in 1957, which was under Agnew Bonson at the Institute of Field Physics at UNC Chapel Hill, which you can see in this document is one of these outposts studying gravity. And they're also simultaneously funding Townsend Brown, who has his capacitor gravity experiments. And so anyways, all of this is to say Oppenheimer is listed as one of the scientists deeply involved in anti-gravity research. Oppenheimer, Teller, Wheeler, and Freeman Dyson are all mentioned as being, really important to this story in that Australian document. And so just to comprehensively answer your question about whether Oppenheimer was involved, I don't know.
Oh, you answered it. That's a lot. Essentially, it could be, and we're speculating here, situation where for whatever reason in this research that could tie all the way to UFOs when we're talking about anti-gravity, Oppenheimer may have either and/or known too much or perhaps formulated an opinion behind the scenes that they didn't like.
That could totally be true. Yeah, he would. There's a book called UFO Crash by this UFO researcher, William Steinman. And there supposedly was a crash right after Roswell in Aztec, New Mexico in 1948. And Oppenheimer was rumored to be part of the collection crew.
Collection crew?
Yeah, like the crash retrieval guy. One of them.
I need Cillian Murphy at the site right now. I need that.
Yeah, but, I don't know. It's unclear why they would have gone after him. He was obviously like extremely idealistic in some ways.
Yes.
He obviously regretted aspects of the, I've become
death.
I've become death, destroyer of worlds. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know where he went astray or what happened or whether he was even involved in the UFO thing. This is all predicated on, there being some core program that like, he was involved in. So you have to think probabilistically again. There's a world in which maybe he wasn't, but... And
it would tie directly into the lore, though, because it involves literally the godfather of nukes.
Well, that's the thing. If you want, like, real disclosure, you have to look into the historical stuff.
Yes.
Like, the theorizing, the crazy time travel shit, that's so interesting. I love it. But it's like, it's, as Feynman would say, not even wrong. Completely unfalsifiable. You, can run in circles, talking about this stuff. And then... the other vector is like, we are waiting on the government for disclosure. It's like, just please give us the information. Like we'll be fine. We're not going to be freaked out or whatever. And then there's like real historical research where it's like, this stuff wasn't that long ago. We're talking like 70 years ago, 75 years ago, whatever. Were these people at all entangled with the UFO story? We just made a $130 million movie about Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
He's like the godfather of American science. We should maybe just look into that. Like, what did he know?
Yeah, you and I were talking before we got on camera about the concept of what's potentially known behind the scenes, and therefore the argument becomes what should be disclosed. And because obviously people weren't listening while we were off camera. One of the things I brought up was a very early podcast I did, number 17, with my friend Alex Horowitz, who comes from your world. He was one of the early employees at 8 Sleep, and got to spend a lot of time around the smartest dudes just like you. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.